How to make your dreams come true with astrology. Yes, this is possible, and that is what I'm going to look at in this video. And the first thing you're going to do is learn your astrology, and you want to learn specifically your life path astrology. You can tell what your life path is with astrology. And that is the first thing that I would do if I wanted to make my dreams come true. Now, many people right away think that, astrology's not true. There's many different astrologers that say many different things, and these are problems with. These can be problems and obstacles to what I am referring to into making your dreams come true. Who do you believe, etc., etc. The best way is to really understand astrology for yourself, and you take some time to learn it. Specifically the evolutionary or life path astrology. But if you just take my word for it, which is another thing that you can do, experiment with the things that astrologers are saying, experiment with the things that you're learning, you can find out, not necessarily quickly, but you can find out in some time if there's some validity to what I'm saying or what other people are saying. And this idea of making your dreams come true with astrology is very simple. I want to keep this as simple as possible, and I'm going to get into some examples here. But the first thing you want to do is to see if your life, your current life, what you're doing right now and what you've been doing the past 5 to 10 years, say, correlates with what the astrology says about your life path. So this works extremely well. The older you are, it can still work. It can still work at a younger age, but let's say specifically you're in your mid-30s or older. You've lived some life. You can really correlate what's happening in your life to the astrology, and you can see, well, I've been making my dreams come true, and you can see how that it's working. That what I'm saying is valid. Or let's say you've been trying to make your dreams come true and it's not really going that well, or it's going slowly. You can correlate that and see in the astrology if we can see some of the problems that exist. Maybe it is something that can take a long time, and the astrology will show that. So you're still on the right path. It just may take longer than you expected. You can see that maybe you are trying to do something that is kind of working, but not really. If you're being honest with yourself, it's not correlating with the astrology at all. And here's where we can really do some real work with the astrology and help ourselves make our dreams come true. So I want to get into some examples. I'm just going to quickly use myself as an example, because when I say life path, or use the term evolutionary astrology, it's not as if your life path is very narrow and there's just one thing that you can do. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of what that means. Let's say in my case, and we're always going to start with Pluto. Where is your Pluto in your chart? And I have Pluto in the 9th house. So the 9th house Pluto is going to be someone who is searching for truth, a traveler, maybe a religious person, a philosopher, someone who likes games, a teacher. And it could be many of these things. And I also have Saturn conjunct Pluto in Scorpio, with Pluto at 29 degrees in the 9th house. So I'm going to use that as my example. You could say that this person could look at their life and say, well, are any of these things true? If you look at my life, you would say, oh yeah, well, he was very interested in coaching tennis. And even before that, I started a graduate program for teaching that I dropped out of pretty quickly. but just having that interest of teaching and then being a tennis coach and then learning a lot about tennis coaching and very interested in the teaching coaching aspect of it. And I also even had a best friend who had a master's degree in teaching and worked as a teacher, and he was also a tennis coach, and we would also discuss tennis philosophy, etc. So if I was the client and I'm talking to the astrologer and I'm telling him all this, as the astrologer can clearly see, we can work together and we can see that this person was making his dreams come true. Dreams in the sense of like, what do you want to do with this? What do you want to do with your life? What do you want to come true or to come into reality? And we can also look at my sun. So we can look at, as I said, start with the Pluto, and we look at my sun and some other planets that are in the first house. And my sun is in Capricorn. And the first house known as the Aries house. And Capricorn having Mars exalted, Saturn, the ruler. And I can also see with that ninth house, first house, this person would be good at athletics or sports or things that have to do with the body. They'd be interested in that. And I can ask, as an astrologer, I can ask this person more questions about that. And they might admit that, growing up, I was very active and very much into games and sports. More so, and I was more talented than, say, most people. So this is something that we can see is really lining up with this person's life path. And from there, we can start to ask questions like, okay, where are you currently? Are you currently making your dreams come true? What happened? And we can discuss some of those things and see how we can further what that person wants to do, make it bigger. We can see if that's possible. We can see if we can change it. Maybe this person doesn't want to be in tennis coaching. In my case, obviously, I'm an astrologer, working as an astrologer. I am no longer coaching tennis. So, with that being said, this person we're going to look at the same chart because nothing's really going to change. We're just going to look at some other options. And you can see with Saturn in Scorpio, Pluto in the ninth, the Sun in the first. Well, the first house with the Sun in the first and the Sun in Capricorn often, and I also have Mercury in the first, this can often display leadership qualities and someone who looks to take care of other people. And I can, as an astrologer, I can ask the client as well, is this something that's true? And this is something that is true. I've always been in somewhat of a position of leadership, whether I like it or not, whether I want to be or not. I've always been someone who is into deeper subjects, is not afraid to talk about the occult, things like astrology, psychology, etc. And we can see how that correlates with the life path as well. And then we can look at some other things and really see more in depth if that's something that the astrology is going to support. In a sense, we're saying that's something that God is going to support, because that's what we're looking at with our life path astrology. Now let's look at some more examples of what might be possible in the future. Let's say you're looking at your life and you have some dreams and they haven't really came true, and there's some things that correlate, like in my case, for example, this idea, this ninth house, this teacher, this coaching, athletics, etc. So let's say I'm asking the question, well, am I ever going to be a professional athlete? And me, at my age, more likely than not, I'm not going to be a professional athlete. It's an easy question to answer. But let's say I was 20 years old and I was asking that question. That is something that we can look at the astrology and see that if that's possible, if it's something that can happen. Is it something that if I worked upon it, would it come true? We can look at the life and look at the astrology and compare the two and start to narrow down if this is something that you want to spend time working on. So often when we get this question of what is possible in the future, making our dreams, we think of dreams as something in the far future. Okay, most people who are living their dreams, the way a lot of people think of it as, they find themselves 25, 30 years old, and let's say they're married, couple kids, and a certain career. That is something that was dreamed into the future from a long time ago. So now we're putting ourselves in that position, 20 years old, 30 years old, we're now asking that question. Another question people will want to know or want to know if it's in their life path is, will I be married? And will I have children? And we can look at that as well. And what you want to do, this is a common one. These are ones that we can say that, well, most people are going to get married, most people are going to have children. But so a lot of people are maybe concerned about that. That's in their life path. And we can look at the astrology, we can look at the life path, and we can look at different years and say, okay, well, in order to make this possible in the future, what can we do to put ourselves in the best situation possible to have the astrology help that, or to have the astrology help us have that come into reality. So I use that word dream in this video because a lot of people think that astrology is just something that, especially when we're talking about possibilities, is something that is just going to happen magically. And although I do think it can happen that way, for most people it often doesn't happen that way, especially if we're sitting down and we're brainstorming what we want to happen, not so much as what we want God to happen, God to make happen for us. Like, what are the intentions of the universe, and then what are our intentions? Because there is a difference. If we can align our intentions with the universe's intentions, or God, the source's intentions for us, we're much more likely to make our dreams a reality. So now brainstorming is what is possible in the future. Now, if we're looking at marriage, or let's say we're looking at career, we can see if that is something that possibly is what the chart is what the astrology is calling for in the future. And then we can kind of double down on that and say, well, what are we doing? What are we doing to make that happen? So, for example, if you're looking to get married, there's many things that you can do. We can look at, well, are you dating? And maybe you're having trouble dating. Well, what is your idea of marriage? What is your idea of a partner? Are you too idealistic? Are you looking for a certain partner that is going to be difficult to find? Because these are some of the things also that we would have to look at the astrology and look at ourselves and correlate together and work on that in order to make this a reality. And some people need to do this more so than other people. And I can tell you, more often than not, the ones that are getting what they want don't have, and this is where I'll probably lose a lot of people. The ones that are getting what they want aren't as delusional as the ones who aren't getting what they want. So I'm going to sum this up. If you're more interested in this, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Send me an email if you're interested in looking at your life path. We can look at that. We can get this started. And really, it's life planning. We can really look at your life astrologically. Use astrology to help you plan your life. Use astrology to help make your dreams a reality. This is the chart of Simone Biles, and we're going to look at her life path and just kind of see how this works. She has a 9th house Pluto. She has a sun in Pisces in the 1st. It's very similar to my chart, actually, but we see some big differences. Sun in Pisces, conjunct Venus in the 1st, Saturn in Aries, Moon in the 3rd, North Node in Virgo, South Node conjunct this Mercury here in Pisces, and Mars conjunct the North Node in Virgo. So if we're looking at her chart, like, what is her life path? All those things I said about the 9th house would occur. But with her specifically, we can see that she's going to be a world traveler. She's going to be, you can see that Pluto is retrograde, so she's put some already put some effort into this. And if she was asking the question, let's say she's a gymnast. She wants to be a gymnast. Well, am I going to be, is this something that I really want to put all my time and effort in? Because to be a world-class gymnast takes a lot of time and effort. And if she was coming to her astrology or astrologer and she's looking at this chart, first of all, I can just say at a glance, absolutely, you can go be a Olympic gymnast. And the reason why I would say that is because of, as I said, that Pluto there, it's retrograde. As I said with mine, with the Sun in the first, Venus is there as well. It's in Pisces. This idea of being a Olympic world champion, a world traveler in the first house. Lots of focus on the body with all this first house energy. With the Saturn in Aries, her work in Aries, a competitive field. And specifically with the life path and the evolutionary astrology, we see that she's already put a lot of time into this polarity point with the moon in the third, and then the Mars on the north node. So where she's coming from, the Pluto in the ninth, south node in the first, this idea of working on the body, working in some kind of athletic field, being a leader, playing games, being a traveler, being a seeker, and then where she's headed, the third house, Gemini, seeking the information, getting the information, paying attention to detail, Virgo, north node Virgo, and then of course Mars there on the north node, symbolizing fruition in the field of athletics. So without looking at anything else, this is a chart when we're looking at life path, when we're looking about questions about what is her life path, correlating as to what she's doing now, it fits, it lines up perfectly. And we can see even as far as her marriage goes. I think she's married or she's in a committed relationship to another athlete, a professional football player. And we see here, it's often we see Mars in the seventh as being, we could say, as being not necessarily a good planet to have in the seventh, the house of marriage, but it's there with the north node, and we can also correlate that to her life as to, well, will she get married, or more specifically, who will she get married to if she was to get married? And we can see a professional athlete fits perfectly there. We can get into some more reasons why that's true. So looking at Simone Biles and making her dreams come true, it's a very easy read. It's a very easy chart with probably no need for any solutions. Let's just say that. So hope this helps. And again, if you want to look at your life path and how we can work with your chart, send me an email and I can set that up as soon as possible. And have a great night.